Hey there, Wicked Lovelies. I'm JJ.
I'm Time.
And I'm Sarah.
And you're clocking in for The Witching Hour, a podcast where we've got a lot of opinions and we aren't afraid to share them. Today, we're talking about the exciting, sexy, and sometimes god-awfully frightening world of fanfiction. So grab your elixir of choice and settle in. We've got a lot to share.
Woo!
Very excited to talk about fanfiction. So like I said, I did so much research for this episode that I did not plan on doing. I learned so much, but before we get into that, I just kind of want to hear you guys' opinion on whether fanfiction can be better than the actual source material.
Yes.
1000%.
Why do you think that is?
I think a lot of times fans spend more time with the source material than the author does, and then spend more time writing the fan fiction. And so when you get into these grand epics that some people do that are 5, 6, 800,000 words, it really becomes its own thing that, and I don't want to say every time, because that's not true, but a lot of the time it gets to circumvent the laws in which media operates in and what is sort of allowed socially and policy-wise to be shown on screen or on the page. So it's sort of a more up-close personal look into these characters, and a lot of times that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I think that because fans do spend more time with the material, it's also interesting because I know that certain cultures can spring up around fanfiction. Like, for example, in Harry Potter, which is probably the fandom that I've read the most fanfiction for, there are fanon characterizations of characters, specifically the Marauders. There's a whole genre of fanfiction about Harry's parents and their time at school, and we saw so little of that in the books that the fandom interpretation really has become the canon. And people be like, oh, you wrote James so out of character. It's like, you don't know. He was barely in the book. We don't know what his character was actually like. Not really. So I think that kind of collective culture that can spring up around fanfiction can make the stories better because it's a collective interpretation, so everyone agrees. And I mean, not everyone, obviously, no fandom is a monolith, but in canon, I have too many thoughts. I'm like, which way do I want to go with this? In canon, there's only ever going to be the author's interpretation, which people may or may not like. Mm-hmm. But in fanon, everyone gets the chance to kind of build these characters collectively. And then the other thing that I wanted to touch on that Time also said was the length of it all. You simply cannot write an 800,000 word book. You can, but no one wants that. It wouldn't fit on a shelf. It would be 5 inches thick. So I think that, fanfiction kind of transcends the bounds of the rules of literature, and it allows for things like slow burns that are, I won't say 800,000 words, that's too long. We'll say 200,000, and people will eat it up.
Yeah.
Because you can get so deep into the characters. You can have so much fluff and filler and whatever else you want character building because you're not constrained by what you can actually print into a book.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of you have kind of touched on the reasons that I agree that fanfiction can be better. It's the putting the time in it, and there's also, I think, a level of passion with fanfiction that even authors don't have about their own work. Because I feel like when you're writing a book or even a novella, any long piece of writing, you have so much passion for those first 2 drafts. And then after that, it's, okay, now I have to edit it. Now I need to look at it like this. And it goes less from passion, more to profession in that regard. Whereas with fan fiction, you just you upload it, you get hyped up by a few readers, and then you're like, well, okay, I'm going to ride this high and I'm going to write the next chapter and I'm going to post it. So there are really no stakes with fan fiction. And I think that is part of what can make it better than the source material.
Yeah.
I would definitely agree that the passion for the material is what makes fanfiction, or what can make fanfiction better. I would argue, however, that the fact that fanfiction is very rarely proofread or edited and is written, posted a chapter at a time, I think can make it worse because things will drag, things won't make any sense. But I mean, that's how mangas are released.
Well, and like Charles Dickens back in the day, he was releasing them. He was releasing like Great Expectations in periodicals. So I think also it's really, I remember when I was like really big into reading fan fiction, I really liked that unless like a story was completed, when it was being updated, you kind of got to just keep returning to that world.
That is fun.
You know, it wasn't like, well, we're finished with this now. Now what? Did y'all ever write fan fiction? I'll put myself on blast. I wrote so much fan fiction. I've been sending it to Sarah Rosenberg. I found like all my old stuff.
Oh God, I wrote like some fan fiction, but I never like published it anywhere. I did publish on Wattpad though, but it wasn't fan fiction. It was straight up a memoir that I wrote when I was 13 years old. I don't know why I thought I was important enough to be doing that. Probably because I was 13.
I feel like at that age, we all kind of have this moment of like, I've been through so much and I've
got to get my story out
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I did. This is how long it was up there. I found it again while I was in college. And we had a dramatic reading at a party.
I love that.
And
it was
rather die.
just straight up horrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
We
No.
do that. Please. I want to
No.
read your memoir.
It's deleted. It's since long gone. Thank God for that.
Boo.
It was so pretentious and self-important, which just truly lines up with the world of a 13-year-old. But yeah, all of my fan fiction, I wrote like Flubber fan fiction in my little composition book.
Wait. We're not just blowing past that. Flubber?
Yeah, I had like a and by had I mean have. I have a massive crush on Flubber. Are you kidding me? You seen that little guy?
Robin
the
For
Williams?
real.
Yeah, the little green flubber.
Yeah, like I want to be Flubber's wife. Like that's
Wait,
all I
hang
want.
on, hang on. The doctor, you want to be Robin Williams' wife, or you want to be the green blob's
Blubber.
wife? The green blob.
The green blob Flubber. The green blob has a name. His name is Flubber.
I know. I just wanted
Put
to
some
make
respect
sure
on my husband.
that we were.
Oh my god.
I thought this was a safe space.
It is. It is.
This-
This is not what I was expecting.
So I
Me
did write
neither.
Flubber. It was obviously like self-insert Flubber fanfiction where I am a Flubber and then I meet Flubber and then we fall in love. Some of my best work, honestly, and now it's lost to time.
I really want to read this. Questions. I have questions.
Yeah, like how old
Well,
were
that's
you?
also the beauty of fan
Yeah.
fiction because it's like such a delicate thing because fan fiction is so easily lost because they're often not preserved. Like even when they are uploaded to these sites, the author has one bad day and goes, I don't want this up anymore. It can be gone from everywhere so easily. And that is intense to me.
There's also like anonymity to fan fiction as well.
Yeah. So I could have posted my Flubber fic and been
Oh,
fine.
definitely.
I was like, when I wrote that, I think I was 11.
Okay.
I would
I'm-
write it again right now. Trust.
I wrote
I'm
it
not
yesterday.
above it. Yeah, I wrote it. I did recently. I did write an Animal Crossing fan fiction that
Tell me
I
more.
did not publish.
Wait, no,
it's
tell
not
me
done.
more.
Yeah. So this Animal Crossing fan fiction is it's a hurt comfort, long, slow burn between two of the villagers, Lopez and Bo, who I love them both dearly. So I was like, this is perfect for me. Thank you so much. They're both technically deer villagers, but Lopez is an antelope, I believe, or a gazelle. I don't know. Anyway,
Ooh, Lopez is cute.
love Lopez. But so my fan fictions are always like the cutest little fellas going through like trauma.
Oh, that is adorable.
I love him.
I just got back into playing Animal Crossing, so you said that, and my entire like dopamine center went bling.
Yeah, I'll send it to you once I have some stuff written.
Oh my gosh, yeah, they both have like the same little horns. They're so cute.
Yeah, they really work well together. And so like Lopez is currently my on-island boyfriend. It was Hans, who is like the abominable snowman. Like he's fully like based around a Yeti, which was cool, but then he had to go to medical school, so now it's Lopez, who is an artist. That's pretty much my extent of fan fiction.
So I was gonna say, Sarah, you've been suspiciously quiet.
Okay, it wasn't suspicious until you made it suspicious. Yes, I did used to write fan fiction back in the day. The day being like high school. I was in my Tumblr girl era. So were my best friends. all of us would later be, well, I guess not officially diagnosed. All of us would later realize that we were autistic, and we all wrote fan fiction. And I remember, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm about to admit this. I left a hate comment on one of my friend's fan fictions because she was getting more views than me. It wasn't even that. It was a Doctor Who Sherlock crossover, okay? And she was getting all these views and like subscribers, and looking back, I remember she had like 50 people following it, but because my stories only had a max of like 20, I was insanely jealous. So I left.
That's so real.
I left an anonymous hate comment because, to be fair, I genuinely didn't like her writing, and I only pretended to because we were friends. So I left her a comment saying how I really felt.
Ooh.
I wonder if I could
Sarah,
find
that is so toxic. I love it.
How old was I? 14, 15?
Yeah, that checks out.
Yeah, that's like peak petty time. Yeah.
Yeah. And she and I were very, we butted heads a lot because I don't need to get into this. We butted heads a lot. I'll leave it at that. I don't know how we stayed quote unquote friends for so long.
Oh.
But we did. We stayed friends all through high school. And then we went to the same college. And that's when we finally grew apart. And she is now a married lesbian.
Oh, hell yeah.
Fanfiction will do that to you.
It's true.
Fanfiction had nothing to do with it.
You don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
I know too much about this girl's life.
Okay, so listen, speaking about knowing too much and behind the scenes, I want to get into some of this research because
yes, please.
It kind of blew my mind. Okay, so I want to start off first. If you had to guess, like, when fan fiction became a thing, where would you put that?
Like the 1500s?
I would say as long as there's been the written word, there's been fan fiction.
So,
well, because I'm thinking, can I say what I'm thinking?
Yes,
because now I'm changing my date to like biblical times because I'm thinking of the Gnostic group of Christians who wrote their own gospels and stuff. Like they wrote the Gospel of Judas and all of that. And that is technically fan fiction.
Like on a technicality, right? There is a lot of fan fiction that is taught now as classical literature, including Dante's Inferno.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hello, biblical fan fiction. Here for it. I love
and
Dante's
it's just
Inferno.
as messy, too.
Oh my gosh, it's
like,
so messy.
If we're talking about his little friends and, like, not friends in Italy at the time, being in the story, like, that is very... It's so topical if you were living in Florence at the time.
He just goes for it. And it's great, and I love it. But what we would recognize today as like contemporary fan fiction got its start in the 18th century, most notably with Gulliver's Travels, which I don't know why that cracks me up. So there was a famous engraver named William Hogarth who provoked and amused readers who read his work with a graphic representation of Gulliver getting a Lilliputian enema. And apparently, even though Sarah's face is like, did I just hear that right? Yes. And though outrageous, apparently his rendering was consistent with Gulliver's Travel, and it was a play on the original hero's delight with the size of his own excrement, in contrast to the miniature world of the Lilliputian people.
I'm sorry, excuse the fuck out of me.
Yes.
You're saying this was in the 1700s?
Yes, in the 1700s. And so, like, they're saying, you know, from the start, artists were using fan fiction to explore social taboos and sexuality. And, like, there were hundreds of fan-authored works about Gulliver's Travels in the 1700s, including a touchy yet bawdy series of poems by Alexander Pope, in which the shipwrecked adventurer's wife, who's barely mentioned in the original, so this kind of goes back to, like, what Sarah was saying about Harry Potter fan fiction and the Marauders era. She complains that her husband is never home to do his duties by her. So when Gulliver returns home from his adventure, he's like becomes so disgusted with the human race that he hides from his family, and then his wife is like put out and like upset by his newfound abstinence.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so like even in the 18th century, fan fiction did kind of lean a little bit more towards some of that like more sexually explicit material, and diving in a little bit deeper with a bunch of different, you know, like fan takes and what they think would happen. But that just kind of cracks me up because I would never be like, I want to write a fan fiction, Gulliver's Travel.
Yeah, no. Even then, there's so much more to choose from. Like, if
Right.
I always think about like writing a fan fiction of like Julius Caesar, the play.
Ooh,
And like I also could have done that in the 1700s. Like,
absolutely. People would eat it
I don't
up.
know. That's just a strange choice for me.
And then from there, obviously, like it continued to happen, but then it started to get a little bit more notoriety in the 20th and 21st century. The man who is considered like the father of science fiction, Hugo Gernsback,
Hmm.
he actually encouraged the writing of fan fiction. So he, if anyone just wants a little fun tidbit fact that'll help you on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, he invented the walkie-talkie, and he saw sci-fi, like the fandom, as a pedagogical space, not simply a consumer base for his pulp magazines. And his magazines were, some of it was considered fanzines. They had parodies of pre-existing work. He would encourage people to converse and debate and create their own versions of stories that had been written in the sci-fi world. And he took part in a fan-run Worldcon, which is formally known as the World Science Fiction Convention, which was first held in 1939. And it was there that they would really talk about, and he would start encouraging more of these fan takes on his work. As things moved forward, by 2012, we had the phrase public spheres of imagination, which was coined by Michael Saylor, and it describes the ways that group of people become intellectually invested in imaginary worlds as a platform to debate their alternate versions, their own societies, and like creating these fan practices that are now kind of commonplace today. One of the biggest fan fiction communities, which I don't think would surprise anybody, was Star Trek. And they were definitely responsible for it becoming more mainstream. But it was also, there's a lot of shame behind it too, and a lot of judgment and stigmatization. The phrase Trekkie kind of became a derogatory term for people who enjoy fan fiction and LARPing and role playing and things like that. But it was because of Star Trek, especially as we're getting into the 90s, that an actual like serious conversation had to start about fan fiction, because in the 90s we went from not having computer technology easily accessible to it becoming more accessible, especially into the early 2000s. What people were doing before was they would write the fan fiction, they would do photocopies and distribute fanzines or share it amongst other people. But we started moving toward digital circulation, and this journal that I read about it, they said at a time when there was concern that the internet, having started on military bases and in research institution, was itself a mostly male techno culture, fan women were helping each other learn how to access and tap the power of the online world, often passing along their old computers to other fans whose work they wanted to help transition to the web. Many of these works were aggressively policed by media companies who saw these texts as infringing upon their intellectual property rights, and many leading sci-fi authors were outspoken in condemning fans who built on their stories, calling them infringers, saying they lacked originality. So there was like this stigma around it that you're a thief, basically, and you're unoriginal and you're taking other people's ideas. But in 2007, there was the Organization for Transformative Works that evolved. And this is, like, to this day, the most important journal in the expanding field of fandom studies. And it's actually, transformative works is a concept in American intellectual property that describes works built on pre-existing texts, but they add something new. So an original interpretation, you're looking at characters differently, you're changing dynamics. And in 2007, that's when we started to see this shift, which was then commodified corporately by the rise of 50 Shades of Grey, which is pretty widely known as a Twilight fan fiction with characters that were just slightly revised so that way you could publish the novel.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that is how my first novel started, was as Merlin fan fiction. And then I tried really hard to change it up to make it not that.
Well, and this is something that is like very common, like the After series by Anna Todd, which ultimately became a movie franchise as well, was One Direction fanfic. Naomi Novik started writing the Temeraire series as a Master and Commander fanfic. There are also a lot of really popular fan fictions that are being published as books in 2025, including Manacled, which is like probably the most well-known Hermione fanfic.
You can't do that.
You can if you change the character. Like if you change enough of it and make it your own story.
Is that what they're doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. I've read Manacled. I don't know how they're going to do that because it's the first like third of the book is straight up Handmaid's Tale. Like we're not even infringing on Harry Potter at this point because we do get into like the Wizarding War in the middle third. It's kind of split into thirds. I don't know if you gathered that. The Wizarding War part of it, you could change enough of that because like Harry dies, which is not canon compliant.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a spoiler because you jump back in time. You find out in the first chapter that like pretty much all of the main characters except for Hermione are dead, which is also a giant bummer. Let me just say Manacled is not fun to read. Like I read it and some of it was really interesting, like the magic of it all. But like the first part is literally Handmaid's Tale. Like it's women in their red cloaks who are being assigned to dudes to procreate with. Yeah. So, like, I don't know how the author is going to change enough of that to not infringe not just on Harry Potter, but on Margaret Atwood.
I'm sure that there has to be enough change.
Right.
So that way it's not going to become something that is going to result in legal action. But I do think that it's a little strange because it is so well known as being a Hermione fanfic. I don't know how they're going to change that appropriately.
Well, Cassandra Clare, her whole Mortal Instruments series, I finally found an opportunity to rant about Cassandra Clare. Her Mortal Instruments series, by the way, Mortal Instruments was the name of a Ginny and Ron incest fic. Don't know if you knew that.
Oh my god, no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a smutty fiction of them like fucking all around the burrow, and it's called Mortal Instruments. And she was I'm gonna reuse that for my YA book series. So her main JJ looks so upset.
Molly Weasley did not "that's my daughter, you bitch," so that way Ginny could fuck her brother.
Except to Cassandra Clare, she did. Cassandra Clare has a thing for incest, and like I am not here to yuck anybody's yum, except that.
By the way,
except that. No, incest is not okay.
I'm yucking the fuck out of that yum. Are you serious? Oh my god.
You're right. I was trying to be polite, but don't. That's so disgusting. As someone with a brother, don't do that. That's gross.
No,
don't do that.
There are very hard lines for me. This is one of them. Sorry, you're gross. If that loses us any amount of listeners, honestly, I'm glad. I don't that's nasty.
Yes. So in her published book series, The Mortal Instruments, it was basically a retelling or a reworking of her very successful Draco trilogy, which is where a lot of the fanon characteristics of Draco Malfoy come from. Like Draco being this like misunderstood bad boy. And you can very clearly see in the Mortal Instruments series who's who. So the main character, Clary, is Ginny, complete with red hair. The main love interest, who she thinks is her brother for a hot minute, and she has decided she's in love with him anyway, but it ends up being okay because they're not actually related. But they decided that they were okay with being related and also in love before they found out that they weren't related. So that's another thing. Yeah. I agree. That is why I don't care how many people love the Mortal Instruments. I simply will not read them for that reason. And because Cassandra Clare plagiarizes, but that's not... Well, actually, it is relevant because she plagiarized from herself.
I was going to say, yes, it is.
Yeah.
But she plagiarized from, directly from her fanfiction Draco trilogy. She pulled whole sections out of that and just stuck them in the Mortal Instruments to publish, which is, fine, I guess. But, the whole thing about fanfiction is that you can't sell it. You can't make money from it. So if you are getting around those rules by copying and pasting sections of it into your book that isn't fan fiction, because the main love interest is Draco. I don't know if I said that out loud.
Yeah.
But he's blonde. He has an absent rich father. He, I think, ends up being revealed as, like, working for the bad guy, whose name is Valentine, by the way, which is, like, so close to Voldemort.
That's
Yeah.
really
Like,
nasty.
You can very clearly see all of the parallels between who is who in the Mortal Instruments and their Harry Potter counterparts.
So I tried reading The Mortal Instrument. I tried very hard. I tried so hard, in fact, that during the shutdown from the pandemic, I bought all of the books because I was like, if I have them all, I'm going to read them all. And I got 5 chapters in and was like, this is horrific writing. I'm not going to do it. And I went and I returned those books. And now I'm glad. I'm glad that I didn't read them because no.
They're definitely a product of their time. Like, the writing is very, like, quippy, early 2000s, not like
that.
Other Girls.
Can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's a little bit of a manic pixie dream girl or manic pixie dream boy.
Get me the fuck out of here right now.
The only good thing is that the movie has an excellent cast. The movie has a much better cast than it deserves, if I'm being honest.
I'm just so uninterested. Like,
the movie's bad. I did watch the movie and I was like, this makes, as someone who read the book one time a million years ago, this movie makes no sense.
what a nightmare. I feel like I talk about this a lot. What I think makes fanfiction so good is the promise of $0 hitting your bank account.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you are writing this knowing full well that you're getting not a goddamn physical thing in return for it. And now I fear that might not always be the goal of the fanfiction author.
I feel like if you're going to publish your fanfiction, right, and you want to ultimately profit from it, you probably have a really great premise. So keep the premise, like, give some original characters, give some original, add more originality to it. Don't just change the name from Ginny to Clary and be like, we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because the thing is, like, with 50 Shades of Grey, I've seen, for just to get it out there from the jump, I've seen half of the film. I haven't read any of the books, and I'm not going to. But from what I've seen, when I watched that, I did not know that it was initially a fan fiction. And it doesn't come across that way from what I've seen.
But also, like, you aren't into Twilight. So, like, having
That's true. Yeah.
read Twilight and everything, like, they're very clear. Yes, this is Bella. This is Edward. He may not be a
Interesting.
physical vampire, but he's like a soul-sucking corporate douche canoe.
Well, and I will say, like, right now thinking about it, yeah. But I do think for general audiences,
Well, so what's
it's
interesting about
fine.
50 Shades of Grey, because I have read all the books and seen all the movies, because I hate myself. No, actually, every year for Valentine's Day, my fiance and I pick a bad romance movie to watch. So for a couple years there, we would get drunk. That's also an important part. We get drunk and watch these very bad movies. So the first year we did it was Nicholas Sparks. We did The Notebook and A Walk to Remember. And then for a couple years in a row, we just kept watching 50 Shades of Grey and we were like, oh my god, these are bad. But anyway, that's why I've seen all of them. I've seen them ironically. I need to make that very clear.
Well, you've also read all of them, so let's...
That I did
You're not
that
out of the
because
dog park yet.
I was a horny teenager. That's my excuse for that one. They're not that similar to Twilight. What E.L. James did is took the very basic structures of each character and the family relationships and all of that stuff, and then she let them kind of run wild and have their own stories, because Anna does love classic literature, but instead of Wuthering Heights, it's like Jane Austen. And Christian has a sister, but she's barely in it. She's like Alice in that she's cute and bubbly, but she's not a main character. She's a side character. Anna's roommate gets engaged to Christian's brother, who I think is supposed to be like Emmett, but her roommate isn't like Rosalie because they were friends. So I do think that apart from the characters being very similar to the characters from Twilight, it's not as much of a copy as, say, the Mortal Instruments or whatever the hell they're going to do with Manacled.
Well, I can't believe I'm about to defend 50 Shades of Grey, but I feel like that's the way you do it. If you're going to publish a fan fiction. Because my understanding was that she wrote 50 Shades of Grey as a Twilight fan fiction because there was not enough smut in the books. And so it was
Correct.
her way of satisfying that need for herself and for other readers. And so that was the focus. It wasn't so much on like the vampire aspect. But that's what I'm saying. Like, those are the changes that you make. Like, if you are wanting to do it, that's the way you do it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's not that, like, I mean, it is difficult, but it's not impossible to take the archetypes and sort of apply them like a plaster over something
Well,
different.
okay, but here's like I think an actual hot take, and that is that every story is a version of fan fiction, because every story you're taking the same like basic character archetypes, same different story structures, and like there can be parallels drawn to almost everything. Like all stories are just different versions of the same story, whether it's direct fan fiction or not. And so like I was reading about how J.K. Rowling like sued over a really popular James Potter fan fiction for like infringing upon intellectual property, but kind of like how Sarah pointed out, James Potter was just a name. Like, we didn't really get anything from it. So, if you were to change the name of that character, how would you ever even know? And why are you going to sue somebody over something that they're posting on fanfiction.net? Like, I just don't understand, because Harry Potter is by no means like the first or the most original coming of age boy wizarding story.
Well, that's the whole Anne Rice of it all, right? Is she just sues anyone who writes fan fiction about her books because she's like, those are my characters, don't touch them.
Right.
Hands off.
Mm-hmm.
See, okay, I'm writing a book right now that takes place at a college for magical creatures. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. The main character gets trapped in a frat house full of werewolves. And I purposely am writing with the expectation that people are going to read it, because I don't write smut in my books that I publish under my name because my parents are going to read them. So, but I am purposely writing these two characters with the kinds of interactions where I expect fans to ship them. I expect readers to pick up on that tension and like write fan fiction about the secret dirty sex that they have, because that's what fan fiction is for. So like I am reading it with future fan fiction in mind, or I'm writing it with future fan fiction in mind, because that's just how we interact with media these days. That's how we've always interacted with media.
Yes, and I would love for somebody to read my book and write a fan fiction. Like, I feel like that's kind of the mark of writing a story that impacted somebody in some way, is that they can't stop thinking about it to the point where they're creating their own situations. They're putting your characters in these different worlds and different dynamics. And maybe it's because I wrote fan fiction and I do have a strong appreciation for fan fiction, but I feel like I don't ever have to win a book award. I just want to know that somebody read my book and wrote fan fiction about it.
Me too. Should I write fan fiction about your book when it comes out?
Yes, I'll do it about yours.
I love that for us.
I actually kind of related, kind of not, but fanfic, fan edits, the whole thing. Right now my entire algorithm is like Bridgerton, Taylor Swift, and book talk. Like, that's where I'm at right now. And I actually watched
Sounds
this
like a
interview.
nightmare.
You sound like a nightmare. Get out of here. Don't
And
yuck
I
my
am.
yum.
And I'm yucking your yum.
Don't
Fuck Taylor
yuck my
Swift.
yum.
Reference too. Did I say reference too?
You did.
Yeah, what did that mean?
I meant reference episode 2. I just woke up. Anyway, continue.
I watched this interview where apparently a bunch of fans on TikTok were noticing that Nicola Coughlan and Luke Newton were saving their videos, and it was their fan edits. And apparently it's because they would save them and then download them and send them to each other. Like, to be like, oh my God, look at this fan edit. Like, they just watch fan edits. And I feel like it's kind of the same thing. Like, they get just as excited about these fan edits of their characters. And that's how I kind of view fan fiction. It's a fan edit. Like, yeah, heck yeah. I will be commenting on your fan fiction, telling you great work.
If I were an author with like a popular work, right? And I found out, by found out, I mean, I looked for it.
Yeah.
And there was a bunch of fan fiction. Please understand, I'm reading every single one.
Mhm.
Every depraved, nightmarish, terribly written work will be scoured upon by my own eyes. And I'm going to eat up every single one.
Mhm.
I'm going to leave a little kudos on every single one, leave a comment or two, and that's going to have to just be how it is. And that's going to have to be my full-time job at that point. I'm done writing. Now I'm reading.
Okay, I got my actually finger out because I literally saw myself do it and I was like, oh my God, I am a cartoon. I would want to read the fanfiction of my characters, but I would not do it until after I am done writing them. So
I had that thought because I don't want to accidentally take ideas.
Yeah, and I think it's really, really important, especially with how interconnected fandom and creator can be these days, that you don't, as the author, you don't take too much influence from the fandom, because in my opinion, it's really important to keep your story on the track that you want it to be and not bow to the whims of the public, because the public can't be trusted. And also, as the author, you know what you want your story to be. As soon as you start taking feedback from people who don't matter, like obviously listen to your editor, listen to your beta readers, listen to your friends, but at the end of the day, your story has to be yours. If you start listening to fans, you will ruin your story because you cannot make everybody happy.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, well, that I meant like a published novel, like a finished work. is
Yeah,
what
but
I meant.
if you're writing a series,
I'm not.
then
Trust, I'm not.
okay. Well, I didn't
Trust and
know
believe
that.
I'm not. I do agree with you wholeheartedly. I think, well, and I will not be saying this person's name because fuck him, but a very popular author has shared that exact same sentiment where it's like, I would love to read fan fiction and look at fan theories and stuff, and I'm not gonna
Is this
because I don't want to accidentally get into it. Yeah.
is this the fuck
Neil
face we were
Gaiman,
talking
Good
about
Omens.
yesterday? Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hope he rots.
I'm going to assume. No, I shouldn't assume because, as my mother says, assuming makes an ass out of you and me. We're gonna just.
I say that too. Huh.
You said something in one of our recent episodes. I think you said something. Oh, it just left my head. But my mom thinks you're so funny already. But you said, oh, highfalutin, I think you said. And
I'm sure I did. Yeah.
she just like loved it. She was like, time is so funny.
Oh,
And I was like, Mother,
wow.
what about me?
My biggest fan.
Birthed me. It's so rude. She's a fan of everybody but her
Fuck
own
you,
daughter.
JJ. It's all about me.
I know. Bye.
I just hit my tooth on my coffee cup, so I just got my instant karma for saying that.
As you should. So with fan fiction, there are rating systems. There are also different types of popular formats, I guess, and tropes. So I just want to kind of talk through some of those. And I did reach out to a few authors as well to kind of get some input from them about some of their favorite like responses for these. So with a rating system, almost all fan fictions are going to have an author assigned rating. And I think that the author assigned part of it is really important because there are some authors who will rate their work higher than it should be rated because they know where it could lead.
When you say higher, do you mean like more mature?
Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of think of it as like content warnings, you know? It's kind of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
My note says, I say we because I did write fan fiction. It's still on the internet. Anyways,
Please.
typical ratings. So you have your explicit, and these are like your super, super sexy, smutty fan fictions. They tend to be very graphic sexually. They're probably going to be all porn, no plot. And then a step down from that is mature, which these are like kind of like rated R movies. They're explicit, but they're maybe less explicit, less graphic. And then you go like a step down to your teen, which is like PG-13. They might have some smut. They might be a little spicy, but they're not very explicit. They're not super graphic. If they do get explicit or graphic, it's for a very small portion. It's not going to be every single time it's brought up. But these tend to have a lot of fade to blacks and like very vague descriptions. And then your tamest is just like your general audience. This is like your run-of-the-mill, regular schmegular, fluffy story. Maybe they have a kiss. Maybe you see some ankles. Scandalous.
These are the
Whoa.
AO3 ratings, right?
Yes. These were on AO3 and these are also fanfiction too. The only difference is that fanfiction.net, mature and explicit are the same.
Mature and explicit are the same, and they also, I don't remember if they have a teen, but I know it's like K and K+.
Yeah, so they do have a teen, and then so your general audience is broken down on fanfiction.net to K, which is like G rated, and then K+ is your PG.
All of my stories were K+.
All of mine were like T and M, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I know that.
I feel like
Sorry,
my
Grandma.
current writing style is between like a T and an M. Light M, heavy T.
I feel like, so like I had the, no sarcasm at all, the immense honor of working with Delilah St. Rivers editing her Chains of Satin. That is like M plus for me, and I could never write that. Like, I feel like there's a level of confidence that you have to write that. And I don't have it. But
Yeah, me neither.
I love that I could be a part of it still, but I just can't. I mean, I could, but it's not going to be good. It's going to be sarcastic. It's going to be not good.
Yeah, if I were to write something like that, it would have to be funny. Like it couldn't be, it couldn't take itself seriously.
I so badly want you guys to read the smut that I ghost wrote because it is so unserious. It is riddled with inside jokes. Literally, the first book, right after the sex scene, I was like, after they have sex, she gets up to go pee because she doesn't want a UTI. Like, that's not hot. You
Right,
don't put
true.
that. You don't put that in a smut book, but it's true.
Right.
And I was like, I have to write realistic and responsible sex.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and that's the thing is when you get into like in fan fiction, especially like the mature and the explicit, they don't care about it being responsible. They don't care about like it is just how graphic can we make it a lot of times. Some of the more popular types of fan fictions, there are so many different types, but song fics, I remember these were really popular in like the early 2000s. And if you don't know if you're not a fan fiction person, so essentially it's based on the lyrics of a song, and usually you will break the song up into like your verse, your chorus, your bridge, your pre-chorus, and whatever. So like you would take the verse and then you would write a chapter or a scene based on that verse. Then you would put in the next verse and do the same thing. And oftentimes, the lyrics will be woven into dialogue or thoughts.
So
I wrote one.
I did too.
Please.
No,
Sarah, what was yours?
No, okay, so I'm sitting here thinking like my autistic ass, me and my friend, the girl who wrote fan fiction, we did not think that's what a songfic was. We thought songfic was when you take a song and you change the lyrics to be about a character. So that's what we wrote.
Oh, I like that though.
That's
That's just called parody, but that's really fun.
We co-wrote 2, I think, that are published on my fanfiction.net profile, which I will not be linked in the show notes. You are not allowed.
No. But like, can JJ and Time read it? Because I genuinely want to. I'll share mine.
If you must.
Excellent.
I won't be sharing mine, but mine was it was A Burning Hill by Mitski, and it was a Time X Time fic. Because I was in one of those moods where I was like, damn, I would give anything to clone myself so I could marry me and then we could get so much done, but more importantly, I could make out with me. This is going on the internet. I'm going to keep it in anyway. But I wrote this fic, and it's a short, like it's not a one shot, but it's like it would be like a single, like maybe 3 chapters of like work, and it was based around A Burning Hill by Mitski, which is so like what a choice.
Oh my gosh.
I was really having a moment.
That's so funny.
Okay, well, apparently if y'all are gonna put yourself on blast, I'll put myself on blast too. I remember that song, Say Something by
Yeah.
by A Great Big World of Christina Aguilera.
No.
It was a song fic to that. It was Glee.
No.
Emma
It keeps getting
Pillsbury,
worse.
Jesse St. James, alternative universe.
He was a
Jesus
child.
Christ.
No, in
Oh
the
no, he
alternative
wasn't.
Universe.
He wasn't. He was like
yeah.
Well,
He was
and even
older.
in the show, I want to say he was like 25.
Yeah, and
Like canonically, he was 25 and kept getting held back.
yeah, like it in the story, it was like I swapped ages and everything, but oh my god, I can't believe. Yeah,
That is, I thought mine was bad. I thought my Me X Me fic featuring a Mitski song was bad. That's crazy, actually.
it was so bad.
Like you hit all of the cringe meters all at once. You hit Say Something and then immediately went into Glee.
I know.
And then it's an AU.
I know. Which transitions to another type, which is AU, which is alternate universe. So again, if you're not big into fan fiction or anything, this is like the episodes of Friends in season 6 where it's like the one that could have been, and they imagine what would have happened. And you essentially create your own universe just using these characters. Generally, character ages are different. They're in a completely different timeline. Certain situations have never happened. Different situations have happened. So with AU, it's more like you're using those characters, but creating your own world surrounding it.
Can I say my AU fic?
Yes, please do.
So favorite just in concept alone. Let me get the title real quick because I don't remember.
Oh my gosh, she's citing her sources.
I know.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So Fallout Equestria is a massive fan fiction. It's one of the longest ever written. When printed, it's 5 volumes. It is it's a My Little Pony AU set in Fallout, like the
And you
video
read
game
it.
Fallout. I haven't read it to completion because who has the time? But I am just a fan that it exists, and so far I do like it. I've only
Are the
read like
ponies
3 chapters.
people? You've read
The
3
ponies
chapters.
are ponies. I believe they call the Fallout shelters, they call them stables, which
That's
is really
kinda
funny
cute.
to me.
I like that,
It's really
actually.
cute. Like, it's fun.
That feels cozy.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's
Mhm.
not. I do believe there's a lot of murder and stuff.
Cozy.
But to me, like, that is the most insane AU crossover, whatever, that has ever existed. Like, it can't get more wilder than My Little Pony in Fallout.
Time X Flubber.
Hey, I told you that in confidence. I told you that in confidence. Now you're airing my shit out on the pod. That's crazy. I can't work under these conditions anymore.
So you also bring up crossover, right? So it's characters from different fandoms crossing over into one another for a story. Time has also brought up self-insert, which are written by people who wish they were a part of the world they're writing about. They'll create a main character that is themselves or very close to themselves, called an OC or an original character. They'll place themselves in the story. And it does not have to be like a romantic self-insert either. Sometimes it's just like, I wish I was one of the people who helped defeat Voldemort, so I'm gonna insert myself in this Harry Potter wizarding war.
Can I say something about that?
Yeah.
About self-inserts?
Yeah.
As stated, I've written them because I just love me. Wow, I love me. My thing with self-inserts is that I wish more people would recognize that they have flaws, because then we get into the Mary Sue of it all. And like, it's also fine to write yourself as having no flaws. Like, if you're doing what you're doing, right? Like, you're writing what you're writing. But I do feel like if I'm doing a self-insert, it's because I want to like have a visual representation of what it would be like if I were there, and I have flaws. It gets into murky water sometimes, because I think like it's easy to tell when someone's a self-insert in a story, often because they have no flaws. And that is a little disappointing. I mean, come on. Come on.
You're gonna notice when you look at my fan fictions that almost every single one is a self-insert, because when I was a teenager, I so desperately needed to see someone like me in that universe, like someone who was tall and chubby and awkward and didn't know the right things to say, but the cute boy fell in love with her anyway. Like that, or just like I just got to be a part of the adventure, and that was why I wrote myself into the story. But yeah, I only wrote self-inserts ever. I was gonna say, I have stopped now because I write real books.
I never wrote self-insert.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I never
did.
did.
You know what? I legit did not care about what the characters were up to off the page. Like, I wrote fan fiction specifically so that I could be a part of the world. Like, what Snape and Hermione do in their free time is none of my business.
I mean, it could be.
All right, you're sick. You're sick.
It's none of my business, JJ. It's none of yours either.
It is, though, because Sarah Rosenberg really wants another chapter.
I'm so sick of this.
Believe that she is encouraging you to write more Snamione. No. Jail.
I love it, but
jail for both of you.
It's always an AU. Like, she's always an adult. It's not
jail.
You know, like, I don't...
Let me tell you something. I don't care. You're going to prison.
Hey, friends. Editing JJ here to let you know that this is a 2-part episode. So this does feel like it ends very abruptly, but come back next week for part 2, where we dive into some of our favorite or least favorite fan fictions. To share your opinions on our opinions, head over to our social media accounts. All links and relevant information will be found in the link down below. And we'll see you next time. Bye!